Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, a quick question for you all. Do you ever find yourself face down in work or just busy doing stuff in life, and then you bump into an old friend when you least expect it, you get talking, and then you both discover it's actually been 4 to 5 years since you last spoke, and it's not until you look back, I think, that you realise just how fast we're whizzing through this life, even though it feels like every day is a grind and every day is the same and nothing changes. When you look back at moments like that, it makes you realise just how much has changed. And this happened to me today when I caught up with Victor Ho from Fivestars. And within a few minutes, we realised it was actually episode, I think, 54 that we last spoke over 4 years ago. And in that short space of time, he now has 2 kids. We had so much to catch up on. But as we were talking, it literally felt like the last time we spoke was a couple of months ago. So crazy when that happens. But for those of you that were not listeners to this podcast back in 2016, when it was formerly known as the Tech Blog Writer podcast, I spoke to Victor Ho, who is the co-founder and CEO of Fivestars. Now, Victor co-founded Fivestars following his work at McKinsey and Company, where he helped build out loyalty and customer engagement strategies for premier Fortune 500 brands. And he started his career as an investment banker at Goldman Sachs and holds 3 degrees from the University of California. I had to force myself not to burst out into song there when I said 3 degrees. But when he was at the University of Berkeley, he triple majored in industrial engineering, rhetoric and business administration. But today, here in 2020, I want to talk about how COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on small businesses and why small businesses are worth fighting for. And we're going to discuss how they can survive and how they need to focus on building relationships with their customers and how Fintech might just be their saving grace in doing that. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to the US, where Victor Ho is waiting to speak with us once again on this Daily Tech Podcast. So a massive warm welcome back to the show, Victor. Now, I know we've spoken before, but I suspect a lot has changed in both our lives and everybody listening. So could you just remind the listeners with a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, we are Fivestars, and we help small businesses build relationships with their customers. So the general idea is that today, these small businesses have a hard time competing with large chains and, Amazon and other e-commerce websites who have a very, very tight hold on their customer bases and a lot of data that they use to understand their customers. For small businesses, there's not a lot available, and what we do is help them to build a database of all of their own customers that they can then message, reward, and ultimately build tighter relationships with.
And so much has changed since we last spoke. And of course, one of the things that has been highlighted this year is while Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and all the big tech behemoths out there are enjoying fantastic success, it's usually, it feels like it's largely at the expense of small businesses around the world because they're the ones that have taken a huge knock. But can you set the scene and tell me a little bit more about how COVID-19 has actually wreaked havoc on small businesses in America? Because I think it's the exact same over here, but can you tell me a little bit about how it is in the US right now?
Yeah, it's definitely a really tough environment to be in. So I guess first I just kind of paint the picture of the background for small businesses really globally, which is they've steadily been losing control over their customers over time, and that's very expensive. So basically, what happens is if you small businesses, they currently have their own customers, but they slowly advertise more and more over, let's say, Grubhub as just some delivery service, right? And then they now have to pay that delivery service 30 cents on the dollar, right, for every dollar that goes through that delivery service instead of directly to them. Or, let's say review sites where they now have to pay that review site some extra cash, or just even from the very beginning, think about credit cards, where now a small business has no choice but to accept credit cards. And here in the US, it's a lot more expensive than over where you are. It's, just basically 3% right off the top is completely gone, right? So the picture you kind of see is small businesses have to pay this tax just to access their own customers, and that tax is growing and growing and growing as they lose control over a larger and larger number of their customers. And as COVID-19 has hit, there's been a lot of obvious impacts, just in terms of having to shut down and lay off loved employees and things like that. But I would say the more insidious and longer term issue is as they need to give away more and more control of their customers, to delivery and various other networks that they're reliant on during this time. You picture a small business that survives off 4 to 7% margins that's now giving away 30% to another player. It's a difficult world to survive in.
And for people that don't have their own small business, or just to set this scene, can you tell me a little bit more about why you think small businesses are so important, or more important than ever, and really worth fighting for? Because I think this is a story we don't get to hear enough about.
To us, small businesses, it's what levels the playing field in terms of people being able to make a life for themselves. In America, there's this concept of the American dream that's fundamental, to the existence of our country. It's core, to the culture, this idea that you can be an immigrant, you can be down and out, you can come here and you can just make something for yourself. And that certainly used to be the case, where small businesses are thriving, you can find something you're passionate about and make a very successful living. Now we live in a world where 50% of small businesses are out of business 5 years in, and 70% are out of business 10 years in. And you just kind of picture that, where you've sunk a decade of your life into something, and 10 years later, only 3 out of every 10 are left. And so to us, we believe it's important for many different reasons, but I would say one of them is just almost core to the premise of our country, which is that anyone can come from anywhere and make a living for themselves. And that's increasingly not the case.
And I read, though, that you believe that for small businesses to survive, they actually need to start focusing on building relationships with their customers. And fintech might just be their saving grace in doing that. But can you expand on that point that you made there?
Yeah, so I think it's the situation where a small business continuously losing control over their own customers is a pretty ridiculous one, right? These thousands of people come through the door, they find them, and then they start wanting to run a promotion. Let's say they want to run a Groupon or something like that, yeah. Right? And now they're paying 50% off for the discount and an extra 25% off to run the promotion. These are just like massive taxes that these small businesses pay, ultimately because they don't have access to a big customer base. And for most small business owners, if you ask them, hey, can you message your own customers? Can you reach out to them in different ways other than mail or trying to shove printed flyers under windshield wipers or something like that? There's not much they can do. What we think is ridiculous about that is, if you look at payments as a very simple example, payment processing is something they're currently paying thousands of dollars for. And these customers are literally coming in to your store with a form of identification, right? They're coming in with a form of identification, swiping a credit card. They've got a computer in their pocket in the form of their phone. And they still are not able to know who their own customers are or even access them. And so one of the key things that we believe should happen is anytime a customer swipes their credit card at any one store, that merchant should capture that customer's information, right? And the customer should be able to sign up for rewards or for some sort of discount. And the merchant should then be able to message all of their own customers, run their own promotions, offer their own ordering, and so on and so forth without paying a third party to access their own customers.
And SMBs, it seems, need customized technology more than ever too. And by that, I don't just mean any loyalty platform, but one that gives them control over their own data and their customer data. So, but can you tell me more about how large companies that offer this can appear like a savior to SMBs, but ultimately become an enslaver by controlling their customer relationship at a price? Because that is the one thing that you don't want to give away, is it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of examples. I've already given one simple one, just being delivery, where a lot of people obviously view delivery services as a savior during this time when you can't go into stores.
Yeah.
But increasingly, customers are then going to order through those services and pay a large tax, right? Another one, Amazon. Amazon has a lot of small businesses on its network. And it's one of the things that they always sort of tout. Even in the recent sort of tech antitrust hearings with Congress, they're talking about how many small businesses they have on their platform and how successful some of them are. Yet, when you picture your own Amazon shopping experience, so what happens is when you order from a small business, Amazon gets to take roughly a 17% tax right off the top. And you tell me if they've designed their website in a way where that small business is commoditized or not, right? Most of the time, you don't even know what company it is that you're buying from. You have no loyalty to that company. For all intents and purposes, they're interchangeable. Your loyalty is to Amazon. And so all that's really happening is as more and more small businesses post on Amazon and they feel like they need to, they feel like it's their savior in certain aspects, or they just have to in other aspects to get enough traffic and revenue. More and more consumers become conditioned to go shop on Amazon to look for, those products and services. And the ones that are the most lucrative, Amazon will, white label, and they'll make their own versions in-house, right? Whether it's diapers or anything else, Amazon starts making their own versions. Or if any one small business doesn't live up to the terms Amazon wants, then they just swap them out with the next small business offering the same product. And as a consumer, you really had no allegiance anyway to that first business because it's so hard to even see on Amazon's website. So that's just a very simple example where you start offering your products there partially because you just have to, and that's kind of the whole monopoly antitrust hearing that's going on, and they start siphoning away a significant portion of your revenue that gets larger and larger. And if you're not okay with it, then they just swap you out for the next person. Or if you're making too much money, then they'll just make their own product exactly in your category, and just put you right back out of business.
And I can't believe it's over 4 years since we last spoke. I think it was episode 53 that we last spoke. And in that time, a lot of things have changed. And even if there is anybody listening that remembers our conversation all those years ago, I'd love to revisit this. So can you tell me a little bit more about how Fivestars, you're tackling all of these problems and more, and helping provide local small businesses with that simple solution to process payments and automate marketing too. It's incredibly refreshing what you're doing here and almost fighting for that SMB out there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Neil. So as we talked all those years ago, the founding mission for Fivestars is to help local businesses by turning every transaction into a relationship. Turning transactions into relationships is what we believe is the key for small businesses to succeed when they can't compete, with the big boxes and the e-commerce players in terms of prices or selection or line speed, or a lab at McDonald's to design meat that never spoils and so on and so forth. Well, what they've got is relationships. And so Fivestars has just continuously been building products in this space. And I've been talking about payments because that is our most recent product addition that we've bet the company heavily on. So when we thought about areas that are transactional, right, in terms of the idea of turning every transaction into a relationship, payment processing was the most transactional area we can think of, where you are paying someone thousands of dollars, and yet you've got these customers who walk into the store. So they're not a name anymore, right? You don't know what their names are. They become a credit card number. Half the time I go into certain shops and I give them my credit card. They don't even make eye contact or look up at me as they take my credit card, right? They just kind of swipe it and I become a number. And the small business effectively gets nothing in return, zero value, right? They pay thousands of dollars for this service, and the small business doesn't get anything in return for it. And so the latest product for Fivestars, we are able to merge payment processing with our leading marketing and customer retention products. And so the way it now works is we can go to a merchant and we can say, hey, whatever you're paying for payment processing, we're just going to match that exact same rate. So you don't have to pay an extra penny from what you're paying now, except going forward, every single person that swipes a credit card at your store, you'll be able to capture to your own database. And now you can message those people, and we can help you drive a lot more revenue from those same customers. So that's been the key of what we've been up to, and we've been very excited about the reception we've received from basically helping these small businesses repurpose something that has cost them thousands of dollars and been incredibly transactional into something that drives them significant revenue without costing them any extra money.
And just to bring to life everything that we've talked about here, do you have any success stories that you could possibly share?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ones that come to mind. Maybe I'll share one quick one and one other one that I think ties to the recent environment. So one that I've always loved is a place called Tyson's Tacos over in Texas, and there was a period when they were really struggling to make ends meet and struggling to keep the doors open. And one thing they started doing was they had customers come in and say, "Hey, why can't you make a taco with these ingredients?" Or they'll come up with their own creative tacos, right? And what they started doing is they started just making those tacos and putting them up on the menu. Different customer created tacos. And as they used Fivestars, they actually made it a reward. Whereas you earn points, if you earned enough points, you get to make your own taco. And that actually became so popular that customers started competing over trying to get their own tacos on the menu, and they had to keep raising the point threshold higher and higher and higher because everyone was coming a lot more often trying to saving up their points in order to try to get their own taco on the menu. And at the end of the day, this whole thing, and it was very creative on the part of the business owner to think of this. It ended up saving the business, and he reached out to us saying that while he was on the brink of going out of business by the larger chains that had to open up around him, this promotion, this competition helped his business grow, and actually he's doubled his sales over the last 2 years, and it's now thriving as a result. And so I think that's just a very simple example of how powerful it can be if you leverage your own customer base. One other quick one that I think is just super relevant given the COVID environment is there was actually a grocery store, and this is more just to show the power of messaging your customers. But there was this grocery store in March that was really struggling and worried about going out of business, due to things shutting down and customers not going out. But this was a little bit weird to us because grocery was one of the verticals that are open here in the States, right? You don't have to shut down if you're a grocery store. And in fact, if you go to the big box stores, they had empty shelves. People are, fist fighting over toilet paper and all sorts of crazy stuff. And so we just thought it was kind of ridiculous that there'd be this, grocery store with fully stocked shelves on the verge of, going out of business and laying off employees. And so one of our sales reps helped them send out this picture of their shelves, with fully stocked food and toilet paper and all sorts of things, saying, hey, the owner is having to cut hours of employees and make some really hard decisions. Their shelves are full. They need your help. And literally later that day, hours later, that post had been shared a bunch of times, and our rep went back and she saw that the parking lot was completely full of customers and there was a line around the building. And she says, I saw the owner, and as soon as I walked in, she came up, gave me a hug, started crying, and thanked me. The community is making a big impact right now. Hopefully she doesn't have to cut any more hours and can keep employees around. I really like that story because it just illustrates how actually a lot of times even customers are desperate for your product. They need you. They want you. They're literally fighting each other at the local Target, as they're running out of these things. And if you can just message your own customers and just let them know that you're around and what you got, a lot of times that's transformative.
Love that story. So powerful. And I'm curious, do you think that if we don't act quickly and start supporting small businesses, especially at this uncertain time, do you think big box change could actually go on to destroy local economies too? Or is that possible?
It's definitely possible. And I think the most insidious piece to me is the continuing disintermediation of these small businesses, where as they give up a larger and larger percentage of their revenue to these different networks, they'll quickly become, it quickly becomes unsustainable, to survive and make your economics work when you're living on razor thin margins as is. That being said, I also do believe in the resilience of small businesses. Small businesses are powered by incredible creativity and ingenuity and the work ethic of a population of people that really care about what they do and their customers. And one thing I have also seen is that in the prior recessions, for instance, in the States, after the 2008 mortgage crisis or following the year 2000 and the crash there, and even the ones before that, small businesses take a brunt of the pain, and you see a lot of them go out of business. Yet at the same time, you see them actually leading the way in the recovery that happens after. And for instance, in a few of the aftermath of a few of the prior recessions, small businesses accounted for almost 100% of the job creation that then happened. So I believe it's a mix. I believe that it's incumbent on us to act now to save the small businesses that we know and love, because ultimately many of them will go out of business, and that is going to be deeply painful to those people. But I also have, a lot of belief in the power of small businesses and new ones that will ultimately spring up to take their place and help lead the way in a recovery that follows. So I think it's kind of a tale. There's two sides to that, but it certainly is a very important time.
Absolutely. It's almost like the beginning of a tale of new cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. But,
exactly.
But to end on a positive note, what is it that excites you about the future for SMBs and how technology will ultimately help them thrive and survive?
So I think a view that we have here at Fivestars is that it will be very hard for small businesses to compete in areas that are chores, but they will thrive in areas that are experiences. So what I mean by that is when you need to get a chore done, let's say you need to just order more toilet paper, or you got to buy more dog food or whatever, something that feels like a chore. Large chains and Amazon will probably win at that, right? They'll probably win at you just ordering toilet paper at a click of a button and showing up on your doorstep, the next day. However, where we believe small businesses just have an intrinsic advantage is in anywhere where you are looking for an experience. You want to take your spouse out on a date. Are you going to take them to Pizza Hut, or are you going to take them to that charming, Italian restaurant down the street? When you go visit a foreign country, let's say you're going to visit Paris on vacation. Are you going to eat at a bunch of local chains, or a bunch of not even local chains? I guess that's an oxymoron. Are you going to eat at a bunch of chains, or are you going to eat at the local bakeries and coffee shops and shop at the local boutiques? Of course, you're going to go to the local small businesses because that really represents the heart, the essence, the personality of that country, that place. And it's where you're going to get a significantly better experience because you're going to a place where someone's a sweat and tears and compassion has been poured into, versus a large chain where someone's just working minimum wage and they could care less and they're going to clock out. And so for Fivestars, we fundamentally believe that small businesses have a competitive advantage when it comes to anything that where you're really looking for an experience. You're not looking to just check the box, but you're looking to have a good experience. The creativity and passion of the small business owner is always going to win there. And here at Fivestars, we believe that if we can empower more and more of them to tell their story, if we can empower more of them to get to know their customers, then they are going to have a significantly bigger advantage at personalizing the experience than a big box who really doesn't care that much at the end of the day would. So we do believe that given the right tools, the future is very bright for the small business owner.
Absolutely. And before I let you go, Victor, I've got to ask, can you remind everyone listening of where they can find you guys online, and also contact your team if they've got any additional questions? Because I'm conscious we've covered a lot of ground today, and there's going to be a few people wanting to find out a little bit more, especially with that great help that you're offering SMBs too. Yeah,
so our website is fivestars.com, spelled the way it sounds, and we'll be able to take any sort of inquiries, and also the website would just provide a lot of information. So there's a phone number and a chat link on the website, and we can get in touch with anyone through there.
Well, there's just so much negativity in the media at the moment. It's a very uncertain time for SMBs. But what I love about what you're doing here is how you're leveraging technology to provide local small businesses with that simple solution to process payments and automate marketing, and so much more than that too. And it's such a positive story that we need to get shared out there more and more. So I'm going to make a promise to you here, Victor. We cannot leave it 4 years until we speak again. So I'd love to speak to you again towards the end of this year or early next year and see how that journey is going and how you're continuing to help SMBs, because it is so important right now. But more than anything, just thanks for connecting again and coming back on the podcast.
Yeah, it is my pleasure. It's great to connect with you again, Neil.
In the past, the advantage for small businesses was their customer relationships and being able to walk into a store and they knew every customer by name. But today, they don't have the same resources as big businesses do, so they can't compete on things like pricing, inventory selection, speed and marketing efforts. So in times like this, with COVID-19, this problem could impact how they quickly recover. So hearing how to increase sales, these small businesses need technology specifically created to help them connect with their customer base. Can only be a great thing. Especially love how Fivestars there is providing these local small businesses with a simplified solution to process payments and automate marketing, almost leveling the playing field in the process. But if you're a small business owner, I'd love to hear from you. There's an open invitation for you to come on this podcast too. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. I'd love to hear from you too. This is a huge topic and something that, like I said at the very beginning of this podcast, is so worth fighting for. And any part I can play in joining that battle and helping it, I'm more than happy to do so. But I've got a small business of my own to take care of, so I'm going to disappear into the sunset now. I'll meet you back here tomorrow, same time, same place, with another guest. So a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.